midnight on Saturday the 4th of May 1754, British warship the HMS Speedwell dropped anchor off this small inlet at Dunboy, Bearhaven in West Cork. 30 heavily armed soldiers from the Earl of London's regiment, under the command of Lieutenant Appleton, came ashore. They assembled near where the huge Puxley mansion stands today. At 1 a.m, led by guides, the troops marched out of Dunboy and into the mountains of Beara. For 2 hours in torrential rain they marched over the mountains and through the bogs until they finally arrived above a place called Coolock, near Iries. This fortified demesne was the dwelling place of Morty Oge O'Sullivan. It was a strange, wild place, close to the sea, amidst rocks and bogs and utter desolation. Near it stood the wreck of a roofless church, and yet old ruins of some Danish pirate's nest. The shadowy form of the brigantine was visible through the grey sheets of falling rain at anchor in the harbour. Because of the atrocious weather, Morty Oge had removed sentinels and lookouts. Dogs barking was the first warning to Morty and his men of the impending danger. Appleton's men had surrounded the property. Morty, his family and over 20 men were now trapped inside. An intense gun battle in torrential rain ensued, with casualties on both sides. After a number of attempts, the Crown forces finally managed to set fire to the wet thatched roof. In an attempt to draw off Appleton's men, 18 of Morty's fighters bolted, one after the other. Each man was stopped, examined and then released. The British troops were focused on one man, Morty Oge O'Sullivan himself. With the house now on fire, Morty Oge negotiated the safe passage for his wife, child and nurse. Finally, flanked by his two most loyal men, O'Connell and John Sullivan, Morty burst through the doorway. He aimed his blunderbuss at the soldiers, but it misfired. He made it to a nearby ditch, and as he mounted it, a crackle of fire rang out. Morty Oge O'Sullivan was dead with a ball through his heart. By now Morty's house had been destroyed, and his ship was set on fire in the bay. Appleton's troops took the body and their two prisoners, O'Connell and John O'Sullivan, and they began the journey back over the mountains towards Dunboy. When they arrived back at Dunboy, they buried the body of Morty Oge, not far from the ruins of the old O'Sullivan Castle. But now the story of Morty Oge O'Sullivan takes a strange turn. Firstly, his body was dug up and tied to the rudder of the British ship. It is said that all Munster fell silent as the HMS Speedwell made her slow, macabre voyage back to Cork City. On arrival at Cork, the body of Morty Oge was removed from the River Lee and taken to New Fort, later named Elizabeth Fort. From there it was taken to the county court, where it was ceremonially beheaded. Morty Oge's head was put on a spike over the south gate of the city, and his remains were interred in the battery of the new barracks. So why this ritualistic display? Why this brutal warning from the British authorities? Beheading was usually reserved for the crime of high treason or for people of high status. The practice of displaying heads on spikes at London Bridge had stopped decades earlier in 1678. This was no ordinary example. History tells us that Morty Oge was killed for the murder of a local landlord, John Puxley. But was there more to this story? Who really was Morty Oge O'Sullivan?